I'm Siew Hoon, founder of WIT, and I am so honored to have the pleasure of using the PhocusWire studio today to interview Steve Hafner, CEO of Kayak. Steve, great to see you here.
So Hyun, always a pleasure to see you, especially in person.
Yeah, and you know what though, it's very different being in Arizona versus Miami, right? Which do you prefer?
Well, I live in Miami, so I have a major preference for that. Although Arizona is nice, although it's really cold
Exactly,
today.
right?
I got goosebumps
But
here.
you're looking
I
good.
might borrow your sweater. I don't know.
You're looking good with a tan. But you know, Steve, I'm always curious about people's roots because I believe they shape you, right? And so you have a very exotic childhood or something. Like you were born in Peru,
Yes.
and then you moved to
Moved to a lot of
Guatemala?
places.
Yes.
So my mom's actually Swedish, and my dad's from he's American. So I was born in Peru. We lived in Costa Rica, Guatemala, and then bounced around between a bunch of different cities here in the U.S. as well as in Sweden.
Right. So do you think that sort of made you into a nomad for life? I mean, do you think how has that childhood shaped you into who you are today?
Yeah, I mean, something sure did. I mean, I got a love of travel very early on, but I also learned how to make friends quickly and to get a good read on people in terms of who I get along with and who I wouldn't. And also, I got a love of experiences versus things.
Right.
So I don't like to own a lot of stuff. I like to do a lot of new things.
I like, so that's like the new trend in travel too, right? Where people are saying we don't want to buy stuff, we want to buy experiences now, given what we've been through with the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you can, it's nice to get both. But most people have to choose. So I would normally choose experiences.
Okay, so we met last year in Florida, in Miami, when US was just emerging out of COVID, right? And now a year later, I mean, you guys are fully opened up. Asia is just kind of coming out of it. How do you feel that this 2 years, it feels really surreal what we went through. How do you think that's changed you as a person?
Look, I think it was a tough 2 years for everyone personally and professionally, especially for those of us who were in the travel business, or part of our business is the dining business as well, which was impacted. But I'm an optimist, and let's see the silver lining behind all of it. It accelerated a lot of really good stuff, right? So consumers now are willing to think differently about where they travel and how they travel and for how long they travel. Businesses are much more flexible in terms of how they permit people to do their work and go about that. And I think there's new modes of actually being digital when you are traveling. So on our dining side of the business, people aren't calling restaurants anymore, and they're not walking in. They're booking ahead online, which is great for our business. So if you look at it with those three lenses, I think it's actually been pretty good for society.
Yeah, and people, I mean, at this Phocuswright, people are talking, and WIT as well as in October, people talk about the rise of conscious tourism. So that's the new term, conscious tourism, conscious citizenship. What are you more conscious now versus the innocent days of 2019? Like what things are you thinking about now more than you were in 2019?
Sure. Well, I'm not thinking about conscious tourism. That's for sure.
Maybe unconsciously.
Yeah. I spend a lot more time thinking about how do I motivate my team now that they're all so distributed, and how do I make sure that they gel. And then when I'm traveling for personal reasons, how can I fit in the right amount of business purpose into that trip to make it effective and to ensure that I can actually stay at that location longer. So I think that's more about the conscious decision I'm making. I do have a lot of friends though, especially folks who are younger and don't have mortgages or kids in school, who are really taking advantage of the flexibility that work from anywhere, which is a policy that Kayak and Open Table has afforded them. So the whole idea that you can be a global citizen these days and move every couple of weeks to a new location and still be productive is pretty darn cool.
Right. But do you think that trend is really only prevalent more in the developed markets where people live in the fancy places, or is it more prevalent in developed markets versus say emerging economies like, let's say, Indonesia or India?
That's how it starts. Everything starts somewhere and then it trickles down. What we've observed is once we moved to our work from almost anywhere policy, the folks who were being paid a lot of money in New York or San Francisco actually went to other places where their purchasing power was far greater, and that actually elevated everyone's income in that area. So I think especially on the development side, a developer in Berlin or Lithuania, it's almost the same cost now as one of our developers in San Francisco or Boston, which is great for all those local communities. So I think that's all going to trickle down. Right. And what what I'd love to see is the next step, which is for folks who have kids in school like me. I'd love it if there were branded schools in different countries so that I could actually pick up my kids and move them, every couple of months to a new location.
So do you have a policy that's similar to Airbnb, which is like the live and work anywhere policy, where they have identified 20 destinations and they actually have a director of public policy who goes out to those places and discusses with governments digital nomad visas, tax structures for corporates and individuals? Do you have that?
Yeah, the short answer is no. We don't have a program like Airbnb. They have a program like us. We launched ours first. We operate in 60 countries. They operate in more than we do, but we have employees across 35. We now have employees in all 50 US states. We're very active in making sure that our folks can travel the world. And anywhere where we file taxes and someone has a legal ability to work, they can work on our behalf.
Right. So
and it's great.
So you were the pioneer Kayak in this.
Yeah, we beat them by 7 months. It's rare that we beat Airbnb to something, but we beat Bright to this one.
Excellent. Okay. So now let's go to Asia, and China is still not open. It's really the only market that's not open, and it looks like the world will have to live with less Chinese travel for now. How do you think this will shape out? How do you think we can learn to live with less Chinese travel? Is this a good thing or not?
I don't think it's a good thing. The whole mission of our Kayak is to help people more easily experience the world, right? So I want Chinese travelers going abroad, and I want international travelers going into China. So I expect that barrier to come down. And when it does, I think there's going to be an overwhelming avalanche of people going both directions.
All right.
So, there's a lot of purchasing power in China, a lot of pent-up demand. We've seen it every other country that's opened up. The outbound travel is, goes bananas. So I'm more worried about, how the countries on the peripheral of China got to handle those big groups coming in, because it's going to be massive.
Yeah, so we say in Asia, we're still in the middle of the pent-up demand, whereas you're probably at the end of the pent-up demand. So we still have a lot of pent-up demand in Asia to fulfill, right? Has this sort of phased opening of Asia made Kayak less interested in Asia, given how difficult it's been to do business in Asia?
It hasn't made us less interested. I think it's made us more aware of the challenges of doing business there. But the one thing that is less of a headwind now is cheap capital is pretty much gone. So you had a lot of local players there with great access to cheap capital, which we didn't have, right? We like to build great products, but we also like to make money. And for a long time, no one was making money in that market. I think that's kind of rationalized its way out. So I'm actually more optimistic about our chances in APAC than I have been for a while.
So a good reckoning of the market. So now let's switch pace, okay? I'm going to talk about media interviews. You've clearly done a lot of media interviews. You're very good at them. What's one question that you wish the media would ask you that you've never been asked before?
Well, I wish the media wouldn't ask me that question, because that's a hard question. No, look, I think the way we approach the media is it's a great way for us to get our message out about what Kayak does and what OpenTable does, and a way to get our message out to potential folks who want to work for us.
Okay.
So we just try to be authentic. The only question I wish the media would ask sometimes, I suppose, is things that are less jargony, like the jargon of sustainable travel, conscious travel, other stuff like that.
I failed my test already.
No,
I raced it in the first instance.
I think life is better without jargon.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm going to ask you a question. Have you ever been confused with being the offspring of Hugh Hafner? I bet you've never been asked that before.
I have been asked that, actually. I've been asked if I was related to that gentleman. Thankfully, I'm not, because I don't like a lot of what he actually did, even though people like to romanticize what he did. But no, I'm not his offspring.
Okay, great.
The offspring
all right, you heard it here first. He's not an offspring.
Yeah, I appreciate my father, Joe Hafner, much better guy than Hugh Hafner.
Okay, another jargon, well, I guess another term that we kept hearing in the pandemic is how we must reimagine everything, right? But at the same time, I'm also told that one quality that humans must embrace more as we go into more automation and machine learning is imagination, right? Like the ability for leaders or us humans to be able to imagine beyond the machine. How do you rate yourself as an imaginer?
I like to think that I'm pretty good at it, but I also am not the same proponent or as active a proponent of AI and machine learning as other people, because when you get to a sort order on a website, for example, where the people who are deploying that sort order can't explain how it works, I think you need to take a step back and maybe apply some more human common sense and ingenuity to it and just outsource everything to a machine. So I like simplicity. I love the amount of data that we have available to us at Kayak and OpenTable. But I also want to make sure that we're putting it through the lens of humans who consume the website and consume the services. And if you can't explain to me why you're showing me the things that you're showing me on my websites, then maybe we should re-examine that. So when I think about reimagining things, I think in terms of delivering a better outcome or a solution to a problem. And yeah, computers can help, but they're not the whole thing.
Right. So you got to employ like smarter, more imaginative humans to be able to use that tech smartly.
For sure. And those folks are hard to find, and they're also expensive.
But now maybe they're getting easier because there's been a really sort of a tech meltdown as well. So I can see that travel companies are actually taking advantage of this and saying, hey, we got jobs open now,
Yeah, although, I mean, look, if you look in the media, Lyft's laid off people, Twitter's laying off people, Amazon's laying off people. Those aren't the kind of people we wanted to hire at Kayak and OpenTable anyway.
Oh, all right. Okay, now don't accuse me. I may be using another jargon, but I want us to imagine the future of travel together, right? Okay. And one of the things that have come out is like 3 tipping points have emerged as a result of the pandemic. Journalistically, put it simply, right? It's talent, it's technology, it's environment. I didn't use the word sustainability. So imagine when I say new world of talent, what do you see?
So it used to be that we would compete for talent in markets where we knew the talent pool was deep. We'd build great offices, and then we'd try to have a culture that invited everyone into the office, and we made it just amazingly additive to be there, right? So it was high energy, great facilities, great amenities, great benefits, great fun times with our folks. Now the world I'm looking at is we're competing with flexibility. So we can go find talent anywhere in the world. We can move it anywhere in the world that it wants to go to. We have an understanding of the rules and regulations and the benefits so that we can actually pay you anywhere in the world and provide you here health benefits, et cetera. And then the next step is to actually not go location to location, but to speed up the frequency of that. So, the average American, I think, lives in 3 different places. Unfortunately, all 3 of those places are usually in America. Wouldn't it be great for the idea of a global citizen where people lived in 3 different countries every 10 years? Be awesome. Yeah. Right? It would make the world a much better place, and ultimately that's why we started the company, is to make the world a better place through travel.
Great. Okay. So very distributed talent, not location specific, and it's really the world is your oyster, kind of.
Yeah. Look, I firmly believe that great intellects are evenly distributed across the world. Talent is evenly distributed across the world. It's just the manifestation of that talent in terms of education, in terms of access, in terms of being found and hired, hasn't been equal. It's been concentrated in certain well-developed cities, and this is the great equalizer. I think it's amazing. The whole concept that you can be born in Indonesia and end up in somewhere in France or somewhere in Texas or, God forbid, Miami Beach, my hometown. What an amazing world that is to live in.
Well, like the co-founder, he was not the co-founder, but he's the president of Traveloka, Cesar. He was born in Bengkulu, like a really small town, and now he's living in Singapore where he studied in the US. So those are the trailblazers, I think, Okay.
Yeah, and there should be more of them.
So second point, technology. What new tech are you most excited about and how you think it will influence travel?
That's a tough one because there's so many great technologies out there. It's funny, coming from Asia, Siew Hoon, you know the power of the QR code.
Yes.
It's actually just finally getting pick up here in the United States.
I was looking for a QR code in a restaurant and here's the menu.
It's weird to go into a place like this table and not see a QR code on it, right? So I think that technology is finally gaining steam here, and there's a lot that can be done with that. Particularly in the travel process of checking in, checking out. I love facial recognition software for boarding and going through customs. Awesome.
Yeah, Delta is working on that, right? I mean, Delta has it, right?
Delta has it. It's great.
Okay. So environment, what does good look like to you?
Good in terms of environment. I think overall, if we get more efficient on energy and resource usage per output of, productivity or happiness, et cetera, that's good for everybody. I also think that if we really want to solve the sustainability problem that people talk about, we need to figure out how to have efficient energy. And to my mind, that's not more coal plants.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not wind and solar power, which, when you need it the most isn't often there. So I'm a big proponent of nuclear power, which is something that's not a talking point of mine.
It's controversial
It's controversial, but I think that's the right way to go. So hopefully we figure that out before we're in a world of all electric everything and we're burning a lot of coal to do it.
Yeah. I was at an airline conference and there was so much talk about, energy and what's the alternative energy that we do.
Yeah, planting trees isn't gonna solve it.
So you have 4 daughters, am I right?
5.
5? When did you add the 5th? Sorry.
I'll have to check with my wife and get back to you.
What have you learned from them at this time? Because you're clearly spending more time with them. What have you learned from them?
Yeah, I mean, it's just when you have kids, you see the joy and wonder in their eyes and the way fresh eyes can look at something and perceive the world totally different than you do, right? And for me, it's just inspiring and gives me energy. So I love seeing how my 5-year-old looks at a box, versus my 7-year-old, versus my 22-year-old, versus me. I look at a box, I'm like, where do I throw that away and recycle that? My 5-year-old's like, this is an amazing toy. How can I decorate it? What can I put in it? Where can I keep it? It's just
childlike
great.
wonder, right? And they always say that we should always keep that childlike wonder in us, no matter how old we get. We should keep that. Okay. So will you leave them your fortune or will you let them seek their own?
My fortune.
You have lots, right?
I think I've been professionally successful, but I think the government's doing a pretty good job of taking that away. So that's not a problem I spend any time thinking about.
Okay. So you always strike me as a confident person. What gives you confidence?
Yeah, I mean, I'm confident in my own abilities because I'm self-aware of what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. And most of the things I'm not good at. And I seek to surround myself with people who are good at those things. And I have the confidence in their abilities more than my own.
Right. You also seem to be very confident about navigating your own path. You're the founder of Kayak, co-founder of Kayak. You sold it to a big corporation and you're still running Kayak after all these years, And so what's your secret to navigating, your very sort of independent way from the outside within this huge corporation? What's the secret?
Well, it's not a secret. I mean, we sold to a really great company with really accomplished leadership who understood delegating responsibility and trusting the folks that they hired. Priceline Group, now Booking Holdings, paid a nice sum for us, and they did that not because of the brand, but because of the people. And they've entrusted us along the way and supported us, and I'm incredibly thankful for that. And I'm surrounded by very talented people who help me grow, who challenge me, and I do the same to them, and it works. And it's a heck of a lot of fun. Yeah,
Booking seems to have that. If I call out another example, which is Omri, right? They bought Clicker. He was the co-founder, and now he's become the CEO of Agoda. And,
great guy.
He seems to have also. It's another story of where you keep good people somehow, right? And you don't let the culture swamp the people, but you let the people.
Look, as long as you have an environment where good people can prosper and good ideas are elevated and bad ideas are quickly pushed down and learned from, then you've got something great. And Booking Holdings and all the great, I think we have over 20,000 people now, have that culture and it's working. We just had our best quarter ever.
Yes, amazing results.
So impressive, and such a turnaround versus 2 years ago. So I'm delighted to be still with the company after all these years, and I hope they keep me here many years to come. With five mouths to feed, I've got to stick around.
Okay, so finally, great leaders, I think, have to be great communicators, right? The ability to not only sort of have the vision and imagination, but then to communicate it very incisively and bring people forward with you. So what's your secret to acing media interviews?
smile a lot. No, I mean, look, you just have to have a personal connection, which is what we're having. You're having a conversation about stuff that matters. And, my job is to inform and to inspire, and your job is to make sure that what I'm saying is informative and inspiring. I think you do a great job at it.
Thanks. And I ask stupid questions sometimes, right?
No, you do a great job.
All right. Thank you so much for joining me in the PhocusWire studio. And good to see you again,
Good to see you
Steve.
too.
Thank you.
You.